처음에 띠로, 처음에 띠로, 저 화말로.
超级怕你。
Yeah, well, made in China, right? The Hongqi Bridge, I think is how you say it. It's basically completed in January this year, and as you saw, it just collapsed. And this isn't the bridge that we saw a lot of. There was a lot of videos going around about a big bridge, and you could bungee jump off it and had restaurants and all this kind of stuff. This is a different bridge, so clearly China are building lots of bridges, but how well, because China's also got over 1,100 ghost cities, like cities they've built that are empty, and a lot of them they've had to go in and demolish the whole city because it was built unsafe, right? It was going to fall over. So what really is going on in China?
These guys just found a 2,000-year-old Roman mosaic chilling underneath a sidewalk in Croatia. But this is weird because that pattern is in the oldest Egyptian temple in ancient China and in ancient Sumer. You know it, you've probably seen memes about it. It is the flower of life, and it's one of the only patterns that you can see from galaxies down to cells. But the ancients saw it like a QR code that connected your little mind to the big mind. They were able to simplify reality using bubbles. You create a sphere, and then go to the edge, and then make another one, and then keep repeating that, you get the pattern of the flower of life. Now if you connect all the centers of those spheres, you get this. This is a vector matrix. It is the simplest pattern that can divide space. In it are a bunch of symbols used by Hindus and Buddhists and even ancient Hebrews. The Sephiro is 1/10 of this shape. It even trickled down and got hidden in Christian art. That tree creates pathways through this matrix. Some say to the source. The pathway is navigated using this thing. In ancient Egypt, they called this the Merkaba. Quite literally means light body, plugs you into this matrix. Surprisingly, that shape is actually used to mix sound and light harmoniously. They described it as two counter-rotating tetrahedrons, one spin up, one spin down, just like the quantum daddies tell us. If one spins up and one spins down and you smush them together, they create that shape and also create a double helix, which we now understand is a fractal antenna. So big mind connects to your mind like a RC car using the helix. Created by the Merkaba, plugged into the matrix of everything. Big mind has to have something to control, so it gives instructions. Luckily, any shape can be created using our original shape as a blueprint. The wildest part is most people don't even notice that it's right on the pattern on the mosaic. The ancient mind did not see material science as separate from conscious or spiritual science. Everything was connected and easier to understand. It's a more efficient way to think, and it's more fun to learn. I would like for that to come back. Only got a minute to hold your attention on here, you squirrel. So if anything in this video blew your mind, this goes way deeper. I make explainer videos with it, and it's super cheap because my birthday's in a few days. You can find it in that link or right there. And please remember, nobody loves you more than I do.
Yeah, everything is energy, right? The blueprint is what that looks like. And, like he was talking, we see all these symbols over buildings, everywhere, right? And crop circles, things like mandalas. And we see them in a 2D world, right? They're flat, but I think they're actually representing a 3D, picture, right? Which is interesting when you look at a lot of the crop circles and blow them into a 3D depiction of geometry. They are yeah, repeating all these patterns that we see everywhere, right? Flower of life, the Merkaba, the sacred geometry shapes. It's all the same. And this is what we have lost, but these elites, they still have this information, or at least some of it, right? So this is what we've got to get back to. So that was baseforge.us. I think I'm going to have to grab his book. Interesting guy, right? With some good information. And thanks for joining me, guys. Campbell here, autodidactic. And of course, autodidactic means to be self-educated. And that's what we do here. We check out what's going on in this strange realm we find ourselves in and make up our own minds, right? Collect the information, run it through our own filters, and come to our own perspective, because that's really the only perspective that counts, right? You've got to know your own thoughts on things. And of course, give me a like, subscribe, and all that good stuff.
So this is an Iranian temple, and if you look at the ceiling, you'll see these geometric patterns and colors. The reason why they did this is because they're basically showing you visualizations of the higher realms of consciousness. If you take DMT, this is the sort of things that you see. When you take DMT, you are shot out of your physical body and you more than likely go to a higher mental plane. And this is exactly what the mental plane looks like. It is created through thoughts and thought forms and vibrations. Very difficult to put in English words, but these temples were built thousands of years ago and they're showing you higher dimensions of consciousness.
Interesting. I've often wondered what all these ceilings, the really intricate ones like the one we just saw, what they were there for. Were they I kind of figured it was some kind of thing based on frequency and harmonics. But it could be, right? These are definitely the shapes you see. I've never had DMT myself, but I've had other plant medicines, shall we say. And you definitely see these geometric patterns, right? And these very colorful, interactive shapes, right? So interesting. Is this what you've seen? Have you had DMT? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, what your experience was. But also, when you just close your eyes, right? You see that's those same kind of geometric shapes. And this also goes back to the first video, right? It's just showing us that there was a different type of knowledge and wisdom around in the old world. And of course, we don't get that now with science, right? Science, because they don't even acknowledge the ether. Like that's why, well, they can't. Because as soon as they do, we know that free energy is real.
The Crystal Palace, built in 1851 for the London's World Fair. And they tell us that all of this was built as nothing more than a temporary structure. And despite glass not being industrialized until the late 19th century to 20th century, really, this was the greatest area of glass ever seen in an enclosed building, and was nearly 3 times the size of the St. Paul's Cathedral. And put it into perspective, that's the St. Paul's Cathedral. So this 990,000 square foot structure, complete with full-grown trees, and housed over 19,000 exhibits alone in this structure. They decided, unlike so many of the other amazing structures built originally to be temporary at the World's Fairs, this one was not going to be temporary. But it didn't stay at its original location for long. It was torn down and reconstructed elsewhere. And of course there, like so many of our other monumentous achievements from the past, it caught fire and was tragically lost in the 1930s. But who builds such an elaborate structure without the machining of glass or anything like that in the modern times like we have, complete with elaborate forest, only to deconstruct it and move it on somewhere else down the line? These World's Fairs, just like the one in London, nothing more than the celebration of the conquerors. Or as the quote by Napoleon goes, history is a set of lies agreed upon. These statues, the grounds, the glass required for this crystal palace. Does anything in this picture look temporary? Does anything look like it's able to be easily deconstructed with no power tools, no heavy machinery, and then reassembled? You can see very much so why this became that. Truth is often stranger than fiction, especially the fiction that we've been told as history. Research the mud flood and fall of Tartaria. Dig up our true past, friends, and question everything. Until next time.
Yes, always question his story. The Crystal Palace, I've done some videos on this on my main channel, Autodidactic, link below. And it's like you said, it's a dumb story. It really is. I mean, at first they moved it, right? It was this massive construction. They moved it and then it was iron and glass and it burnt down. Now, just think of them moving it, like moving glass panels in the 1850s, or yeah, I think it was 1850s when they moved it. Horse and buggy, right? Glass. Uh, You're going to be doing well if you get there and the glass isn't broken, is what I'm trying to say. Especially when you realize that the story is that the glass on the Crystal Palace was 5 millimeters thick. And here it is. It says here, the glass being 50% thinner, thus lighter. The sheets of glass measured 49 by 10 inches and were 1/16th of an inch. So I got it wrong. It was actually 1.5 millimeters thick, not 5. 1.5 mil thick in 1850. And I've looked into this, they didn't have the technology to make glass like that, let alone the volume of glass. And of course, it was designed by Joseph Paxton, who was basically a gardener who built, apparently, an amazing greenhouse, and then went on to design. He wasn't an architect, but to design the biggest glass and iron construction ever that we know about. Right? This is pretty crazy stuff. It's a very, very crazy story. And interesting that it was designed, apparently, allegedly, by a gardener, right? Who was into greenhouses, because there's lots of, um, you know, conjecture, talk about what was the Crystal Palace, what was it originally built for, and many people have put forward the airship hangar theory, which it may be, may not. I'm not sure why it would be glass, but obviously the shape of it, the big doors. But I've always thought it was a greenhouse. They literally, there's photos with fully grown trees in there. So it could have just been a massive enclosed greenhouse, right? It's its own little ecosystem. But let me know your thoughts. What do you think the Crystal Palace was originally built for?
The final goal is to eradicate humanity as we know it. Once you understand the final destination, it becomes much easier to look back and identify the psychological conditioning, the biological tampering, the cultural grooming, and the educational prepping that we have been subjected to for decades in preparation to making us accept a post-human future. It takes a lot of physical and psychological abuse to get an intelligent species like ours to agree to its own extinction. Most, if not all, that has transcended in the last 60 years was designed to get us closer to accepting such a dystopian reality. Whether you care to accept it or not, we live in a hyper-controlled matrix where our perception of reality is meticulously planned, managed, and executed in order to control and steer us in whichever direction they wish. And the direction is a post-human world. For this, they first needed to destabilize, dehumanize, and demoralize humanity through every means possible. The destruction of the nuclear family, children being indoctrinated by the state, abortion, the eradication of God and spirituality from education, life in megacities and away from nature, toxic food, air and water, social media, replacing real human connection and interaction, engineered financial crisis and taxation, endless wars and massive migration, stress, anxiety, depression, drugs and alcohol, constant fear-mongering, moral relativism as the new religion, and I could go on and on about how humanity has been influenced and forced to move away from all the things that give us strength, security, purpose, and meaning. A weak, immoral, disconnected, ignorant, and unhealthy population is an easy target for the next stage, the creation of an entire generation of androgynous beings. Masculinity is under attack psychologically, culturally, and biologically. Women are being replaced in sports, entertainment, and politics by men pretending to be women, and children are being indoctrinated at school to think that gender is a choice. The transgender movement is not a grassroots movement. It comes from the top. It has nothing to do with people's freedom of expression, sexuality, or civil rights. It's an evil psyop with a clear agenda to get us closer to transhumanism by making us question the most fundamental notion of human identity, our gender. If you don't know who you are, if you already identify as a hybrid between a man and a woman, you will be easily convinced to become a hybrid between human and machine. Gender ideology is the 2 + 2 = 5 from George Orwell's 1984 dystopian novel. It's the final test to see whether we will follow the most absurd party line towards our own extinction. But 2 + 2 = 4. And no matter how you choose to dress, call yourself, or change your physique, will not change that. The sad reality, though, is that in the gaslighting process to get us closer to a post-human future, they have mentally and physically harmed an increasing number of children and young people, and it's only getting worse. This must be stopped.
Well, yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with everything she just said. She just basically laid it all out. And it's so true. I mean, I'm sure that everyone watching this understands and can see what's going on. We are in the apocalypse, right? The great unveiling. And the thing is, this stuff has been going on, right, for at least a couple of 100 years, right? At least since the last reset, since the invasion. And now we see it, right? It's always been going on, but now we see it because the veil is lifted. But it is time to stand up, right? And as far as, the world ending and a world existing, with just robots and that, I'm not sure that that's even possible because everything's frequency, right? Everything's vibration, everything's spirit, and that's not present in robots and the L tech, right? The L electronics, the L circuit of the L-ites who we love to elect into power. Like it's all in the spells, right? But yeah, we are definitely at a point where we need to act differently if we want something different. But please leave me your thoughts below. I would love to hear.
Use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Go to work, get married, have children, act normal, walk on the pavement, watch TV, obey the law, save for your old age, then repeat after me, I am free. Slavery, it works better when you don't tell them. It's all a mind game. William Casey, CIA director, will know when our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. They don't call it television programming for nothing. What if all you ever knew was a lie? What we call stupid equals asleep. What we call asleep is hypnotized, and what we call hypnotized is unconscious. We have been systematically put into a state of unconsciousness so that we cannot see what we are part of and what we are experiencing, though that is changing and changing fast. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. All the time, the subconscious, which we're not aware of, is dictating the behavior and responses of the conscious. And if we don't understand the unconscious, then the conscious will just be a pawn in a game. It doesn't understand. Go to work, get married, have children, act normal, walk on the pavement, watch TV, obey the law, save for your old age, then repeat after me, I am free. And we keep having to say we're free. And in America, they keep having to tell the people they're free every 5 minutes because they might otherwise suss that they're not. Slavery was never abolished. It was only extended to include everyone. And yet people go so out of their way to convince themselves they're not in a state of slavery. First stage of disconnecting from slavery, realize you're in a state of slavery. Then you know what to disconnect from. Leonardo da Vinci. There are three classes of people: those who see when they are shown, those who do not see.
Well, which one are you? Do you see we've all met these people, right? Especially the ones who can't seem to see or understand different concepts. You know, it's the whole NPC thing. And of course, David Icke there, you know, whether you love him or hate him, he's definitely put out some very interesting information to make us all think, ask different questions, and really, you know, he was really one of the catalysts for this whole, you know, what, awakening movement, if we want to call it that. But, you know, this whole people really starting to ask deeper questions and seeing through the veil. But, you know, this is it. We need to know ourselves, right? Know thyself. Answers are within. And like you said, it's all about living consciously, right? Which is the same as living in the moment, right? The moment, the now, it's a gift, right? That's why they call it the present. And if we can live there, then we're not living in our subconscious, which is our program, right? Which just puts us on autopilot and we just go round and round and round. So this is really the way out, is to be conscious, to be present, and to make different decisions and take different actions in the now.
3 meals a day. Please, that's not nature. That's Rockefeller marketing. Our ancestors didn't sit around with breakfast, lunch, and dinner neatly served. They ate once a day, sometimes 3 times a week. That was abundance. And you know what? They thrived. They were lean, sharp, and strong because the body is designed to function best in fasting. You ever wonder why you heal in your sleep? Because you're fasting. The body finally gets to stop wasting energy digesting junk and starts repairing, rebuilding, cleaning house. That's when the real work gets done. But you've been programmed. You think skipping breakfast is a crime. You think hunger is an emergency. No, it's power. Fasting activates cells that act like little soldiers. They march straight to the damage, clean it out, rebuild you stronger. That's real medicine. And yet the white coat will tell you to eat regularly. Why? Because the system isn't built for your health, it's built for your dependence. Rockefeller didn't give you 3 meals to nourish you. He gave you 3 meals to chain you, to keep you tired, inflamed, obedient.
Oh, those Rockefellers. God, they're behind so much. And this is what we know. It's only a small percentage, right? 13 families. You know, when I first started going online, geez, you know, back in near the turn of the century, right? And looking into more, you know, conspiracy theories. That's the first thing I learned, was that these elites, it's like 1% of 1% of the population. But these days, people think everyone's a shill, right? Everyone's working for them. You know, that they've got this mindset that the world is bad and it's all coming after them and everyone's the enemy. And oh my God, he's a shill. And they're like, I don't believe that. Obviously, it's getting more dodgy now, right, with bots and AI, but I think people are mostly good, right? People have different beliefs, though, and this is where a lot of this talk about shills comes from. It's really people saying that person doesn't agree with me, they don't think like me, so therefore they're the enemy and they're a shill. So I don't think that's helping. That's called division. But yeah, the food. Do you fast? Let me know. I've definitely fasted. I've done a 19-day water fast. And at the moment, I'm doing it intermittent. So I'm just eating for sort of a 6, 7 hour period. But maybe I need to go on eating every second day, right? Still got a few kilos I could drop. But, you know, it is true, right? All this stuff, all this repetitive movement and meals and all this kind of stuff, right? This roundabout, it's all been introduced to us. This wake up at a certain time, go to a job, do this, do that, eat here, eat there. It's all a program. And I think we all know at this point that if they're telling us to do it, we should be doing the opposite.
how is it possible without a deep understanding of geometry, mathematics, physics, and engineering? Built in the Abhaneri village of Rajasthan, India, the Chand Bauri is over 1,000 years old and is 100 feet deep, with 13 floors and 3,500 symmetrically placed thin steps. It is one of the biggest and most stunning stepwells in the entire world.
Step wells, well, they're interesting. 1,000 years old. They're telling us that they built that in their story, right? 1,000 years ago. Like, what kind of tools were they using? Copper chisels and rock hammers, sleds or very dodgy carts and horses and donkeys. I mean, it's just dumb, right? But step wells, what do you think that is? I mean, all of those steps, it doesn't make sense for them to be steps, right? As far as to people to use them to get up and down, because why build so many, right? Why do that? So what do you think they are? I tend to think that all those steps aren't steps, right? I think it's for water to run down, to structure water. Then you get the good water, right? Like it structures all the water and it's a well, but it may not even be a well. Like I haven't seen any footage, but has anyone actually gone down to the bottom under that water to see what's down there? That would be interesting, but please let me know in the comments. What do you think these step wells are?
We don't need a driving license to drive on the road. We don't have to pay tax, but we believe that we do because of some dark magic that has been played on us, some mind control that has been done on us by the state for the last 100 years. You see, once birth certificates came around and people started registering the birth of their children, essentially what they were doing is they were gifting their children to the state. Register means gifted to the monarch. So as soon as you're born, you unwittingly, you gift your child to the state, and you were gifted to the state by your parents as well. And essentially what that does is the state creates something called a person. They create a fictitious entity with your name in block capitals. That's why your name appears in block capitals on your driving license, on your passport, on all these legal documents, legal being the word, is your person. Essentially what the state does is it takes ownership of your body. It says the body now belongs to the king because they know deep down they cannot take control of you, your spirit, who you are, your being, your non-physical entity, the person, the being that is looking out to the world and making the decisions. But they take control of your body, and then they convince us that we are the body, the actual physical body. And so when they summon you to pay tax, when they tell you that you need a driving license, what they're telling is the body. And because we're never taught that we are not just the body, we are the being that is inside, the living being that is inside. We believe that we have to comply with all these acts and statutes, that we need a driving license, that we have to pay tax. But that's not true. And this is hidden from us from birth. We never get taught this. This never gets told. And the reason is because if the state can convince you that you are nothing more than your body and they control the body, they believe that they can tell you what to do. I recommend that you click the link in my bio. It will take you to a website called notaperson.org, and there it will be laid out for you exactly how this deception has taken place in our lives for centuries and how we get out of it. How we essentially tell the state that we no longer have to obey. We are free, we are sovereign beings, and we are living and therefore under no jurisdiction of the government whatsoever. And this is going to be the only way that we, as a people, as living beings, escape the control that is coming, by waking up to our sovereign power and who we truly are.
I agree. It's all word magic, right? It's all spells. Person, you're not a person, that when they say, are you this person? Never say yes. If they say, do you understand me or stand under me? Say, never agree, right? I just say, no, I do not understand. And registered, like you said, it means if you've given it to the monarch, because Regis is king. and interred. You've interred it to the Regis. You've given away, and this is what happens, like I said, with children, when you register them, with cars, with anything you register. And, that's why the government can actually tow your cars and impound them and do all these things, right? Because they own them. They can't do that if it's not registered and it's private property, and they actually won't. But let me know, have you tried this? Are you doing this? Have you sort of started walking down this path of sovereignty? Because, I'm not telling people to go out and do it and, now, because you can get yourself in trouble, right? Because they enforce all these with the threat of violence or incarceration. But I think we all need to start walking this path and start acknowledging who we truly are, and not being the body, but being the person, the living being inside that body, the driver, right? This is how things are going to change. Because, like you said, it's all been a big con job, right? They're casting spells.
The sun is not a tangible physical object, but rather it's an optical conical focal point source of electromagnetic radiation. The sun that we see in the sky is a holochromatic projection of the true black hole sun that is emanating from the central vortex of creation. Cosmic invisible electromagnetic energy originates from the central vortex.
The Earth is a bhumandala. Bu means plane. It's a plane mandala. A mandala is like a square or a circle with all those beautiful shapes. According to Bhagavad Gita, Canto 5, the Earth is called Bhumandala on the island of Jambudweep, and in the center is Mount Meru, and Brahma sits on top. Brahma is Jehovah, Abraham, and from that magnetic mountain it shoots onto the firmament and creates the wormhole of the sun. It makes it. From Mount Meru. It is a clock which turns every 24 hours. It turns and it projects from the center of the Earth, magnetic, onto the firmament. Thank you, Pierluigi Gino, as well, the Italian genius, who said, the sun is rotating above our heads in the ether.
A bit of Santos Bonacci. How you doing, mate? It's been a while. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, the Earth. What do you think about that? What is the shape of the Earth? Let me know. Is it a plane, a globe, a crater? Is it a bigger plane, a moon map? There's so many different interpretations now of the realm that we find ourselves in. Of course, most of it's an edge, right? Because we can't go to the edge, right? We're not allowed to explore, the South Pole or the North Pole or the outer ring, which I don't know. Is that a pole? There's definitely no South Pole in, as far as I can tell. It's definitely a North, though. But what do you think about that? And the black sun? What do you think the sun is? Is it a projection? I just find it very strange that we can have such variance in temperature. Like where I am at the moment in Queensland, Australia, for the next week, like today it's overcast, cold and rainy. I think it's like 22 Celsius. And then it goes up to like 28, back to 23, up to 32 or something, back to into the low 20s. Like, how does this happen? Like, seriously, like, is the sun moving closer or further away? That they tell us in their model it's 66 million miles away. No, 96 million miles away, I think, somewhere around there. So if that's true, how does the heat intensity change day by so much? Doesn't make sense. If it's enclosed in our system, makes more sense. And if it's a projection, has it got something to do with the intensity of what's being projected out? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. And there we go, guys. That's another one done, another wander through the strange realm. Hope you enjoyed that one. Please do like this video, share it around if you got some value from it. Of course, subscribe if you haven't already, hit the bell, all that good stuff. And leave me your comments. I'd love to see what you think about these videos. And of course, stay awesome, and I'll talk to you all on the next upload. Bye for now.
Can I get a, oh yeah?
No, 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 no.
What?
Cheese.
Alright, your turn. No!